Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi, the Summit, Lady Death. So, I jumped into a summit. I'm trying to get my exotic for the week. So, I've been running with these guys for, I don't know, this is getting near 20 floors. The event's still on where if you do like a jammer pulse, I don't know what else turns off the extra armor, but the jammer does. So I'm jammering all the time. I've used every different build in this and tried different ones. And when we move the fastest through here, it's great. We have a great healer. If you can ever be with the healer in this group, you would be lucky. That person is phenomenal. When I first came in, the group leader is looking for Lady Death. He's gotten 4 chatterboxes, 3 backfires, and no Lady Death. He's been trying to get a Lady Death for weeks. I think at this point I'm still collecting hunter's gear. I shouldn't be. I made a build on it already. You guys have already seen that video. And I'm playing a little more conservative than I normally would on heroic, but we've, done nearly 20 straight videos. Yeah, that healer's TBC_OG is fantastic. And the whole group has been fantastic. Everyone has been great. The builds have been great. They all bring different things in there. It's been a really great group, a nice mix. It's one of those times where you'd say the synergy of the parts of the group, that's Roxy. The parts of the group are more, not the parts. The parts of the group are more than the group. The sum of the group, us together, are more probably than the individual parts. And that's great. If my voice sounds different, as you've known, if you've been watching this at all, I probably haven't been feeling good for a long time. I've been feeling okay, but I probably had whatever. And this is kind of the last phase of something that makes my voice go a lot lower. This is Ronan Kazi on WWW99 floor. So I'm just going up there and pulsing. The healer has the boost hive out. This is a person that's 100% just maximum. And the leader goes down, but he hasn't been going down a lot. This is near the end of it. This is where we're all just want to get through. We're so close to being done. So I don't want you to read anything into any of that. They've been great. Hide the Moon has an ongoing directive. It's just one of those groups. You can see we have the build, the extra damage, right? It's just a great pickup group. I'm worried about mobs coming out of that door. So I'm just sitting tight on that door. And when they get close enough, I'm going to pulse them. Maybe I save the pulse. Summit is a great gameplay. They have that new gameplay coming out, which I imagine will be better than the Summit. What makes the Summit great is that you're facing this and you can kind of customize it. Just imagine what made the Subway and the Division great is that it was Subway and you could customize it. What would make, I will do more looking into that new mode, because if you can just make it however you want, that's really what I want. I'd like to do a legendary, but, any legendary where you're not going against Black Tusk is easy, right? So I would like to do that. Or I'd like to change the parameters. I'd like a map I hadn't seen. So I will do more information into that. Also, today is a day that I'm going to a truck stop and getting a tuna fish sandwich. So, yay for me, for my other lunchtime with Ronan Kazi. Had a video recently where I talked about Destiny 2 and the Division and had some side-by-side gameplay.
Oh yeah,
Um,
in the middle.
the game was different, but once I started playing it, the game is, there's a lot of similarities. Not an exact copy by any means. So I can hardly wait for this event to be over because this makes it hard to. Had a couple really good video ideas that I tried to do, but it's a little bit harder to solo. Uh, I can do Vile Jammer for everything, but I'm sure everyone's sick of that by now. But I do have some ideas for some videos, and I've recorded some stuff, and they'll probably come out maybe in the next couple of days or so. I record a lot of my gameplay, and I found that sometimes I don't use it. Some of it is not. I'm thinking about stories to tell. I talked to you about recently about solo and being alone and those kind of things. So I have an idea for some videos about that to give you an idea. There's some pieces of gear in the Division that are better for a solo build than a group build. And I would argue that you'd be better off having your solo build. You're going to do more damage for you and put out more things for you. There are some pieces where you can put damage out that helps the whole group. Maybe have a 10%, but I don't know if 10% is as much as 20% or what have you. Or if everyone had a turret, 4 turrets versus not 4 turrets would be always better, but then that might mean that you can't take your revive hive and some other skill. So in this group, you have a bunch of different people with different skills, and it just works. One guy makes mud pies, and so he can make mud pies, and it might not be the best version of making mud pies, but it seems to work in our group. So I think it's pretty good.
Coyotes. You don't need the coyotes.
And someone dropped the coyote mask. And so, again, the group leader's looking for Lady Death. And so he's a good player. And like everyone, you need.
Vile.
And I think someone else wanted Vile. Because everyone wants Vile. Because it's Vile, of course. Because it's part of the best set. I don't know if it's the best set. I'm just being a jerk. So I was going to strike more on that solo, alone kind of theme, but I also want to give you some. It's one thing to have an opinion about everything, and so what they say, opinions are like something. Everyone has one, right? So I'm not really big into the opinion kind of thing, and I think when I'm going to give you my personal opinion, it's not backed by anything. I'm going to kind of tell you that and announce that because I think that's kind of important. Conversely, having opinions about a game and not testing other things, it just seems silly. It's not as well informed, so you're not giving very good advice. So when I'm telling you about you should learn to play alone, I'd like to have a way to demonstrate that to you, give you some empirical things. There's a word I said comparative, but I couldn't think of it when I was telling you a couple of videos ago. Correlation. So correlation is really important. So how do I know this build is good? I use the exact same build in probably the same scenario, and that gives me an idea how it performs compared to one another. How does it correlate?
What is that? The booster item. What does it does? You don't want.
And so that's kind of what I'd like to do in a lot of my videos. I don't just want to make a video and cut up the greatest hits. Or I don't want to use pieces that aren't available to everyone. Now, if you don't have a piece like Catharsis, sorry, Sloth, or some other pieces, that's okay. Because Catharsis, you can kind of get pieces that are kind of the equivalent. You can make a build that's kind of the equivalent of that. What's nice about Catharsis, it has, you know, 2 effects. Sawyer's knee pads is nice in some builds I've used before. Right now I'm using Ridgway's chest piece, and I don't know how to get a decent thing where I can tell if it's healing decently or not.
I got you.
But putting status effects on people, there's a lot of things that proc off of that. And so that's another great thing about Ridgway. And so in this build here, as we were getting to the end, this is floor 100. You know, each floor goes in 2 parts. You're going to face this part, which is an all-out, like every faction tries to stop you. They're out there in the middle to start, and then eventually they start popping out of the door on the side. Like I said earlier, at this point in the video, I am just trying to not go down and be the backstop so that we're not going to have to redo some floors. If we had just started, I wouldn't care. I'd push to make it faster, but we've gone through a slog now, and I don't want to waste any more time. I also think you should carry 3 or 4 builds with you. And some things I'd say, I mean, if your build's not good enough to get through, let me put this in a better way. Let me say it in a better way. Every build you have that you consider to carry should be good enough to get you through a section till you get, for example, in this section, every build I have is good enough that I could play it in this part. It might not be the build I want for the rest of the match, but it's good enough to stand in this section. That's Caesar. And that's Macy and Caesar. So I have Macy is the oldest female. She's a German Shepherd Pit Bull. Caesar's like a white Pit Bullish Terrier, has a big head. And there's Roxy, who's a toy poodle, and she's really bitchy. Right, she doesn't like when the other dogs are fussing, so she barks. So you really don't want to crap out in this section because it's kind of long. We went through it relatively fast, but it feels kind of long, especially if you have to redo it. And I mentioned this, I have some division play, and I mentioned how they've changed the rogue behavior. In the division, the rogues will hack your skills. And when the summit first came out, it would hack your skills. And so now what they do, they just don't allow you to use your skills. There's like a little interval that you can use your skills, and then they pulse, so you can't use your skills. And if you were wondering why, and that's another big thing I ask you, and wonder why do they dampen your skills? It's because why, class? Anyone? Bueller, anyone? Probably because skills are way overpowered. If you had 8 people in there with turrets and drones, the rogues probably couldn't stand up to that. So they have to build in a mechanic to make it different. But since we have a nice mix, we're going to get the best of both worlds. Now, the person questioned me, why do I use shock traps? I didn't always use shock traps. When they put their pulse to destroy all your skills or disable them, shock trap doesn't get disabled. So I usually put that out, and then it's going to survive. You'll see they'll do like a pulse that shuts down all the skills and disrupts everyone. And the shock traps will still be up. This is kind of an ambivalent way to play this. It's a love-hate in that I'm trying to put damage and pressure on them all the time, but it also keeps them away. But I don't want to be rushed by 5 of them. I want to be rushed by 1 of them. So the key is
Fucking smart. Should you fuck the trap?
to get, one at a time. The other benefit of the traps is it stops any type of aerial stuff that tries to get in also.
Didn't know that. Didn't know that.
Now, what you can do, which inhibit, and you see they're coming up already. My shock trap's a little too far out. You want them to get up on the platform before they're stunned.
Come on, you piece of shit.
And like the group leader says, he wants them to come on. Again, he got on floor 70. So, like, he is, he's done 30 floors. And so, really, why do you use Scorpio sometimes? Again, it's the crowd control function of it is what you really need to do. And I play the summon enough where I get rogues quite a bit. And really having a Scorpio to stun them is, it's lights out. If it's one verse 2, 2 verse 3, whatever it is. And it puts a debuff on them and.
It's a quick only because I use it in PvP. It's fucking dumb.
So this guy was explaining that he uses the mud all the time and he uses it in PvP. And it's absolutely, we got a great setup here. I think someone was blinding stuff too. Like it's the top hits for crowd control effects. And we're not legendary, so we have enough horsepower. I would have worried. It took a little bit to get him down. That's an indication we don't have enough power. But it's heroic, so we're okay. This is normally when I say thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing, hitting the ringing the bell thing. I've thought about moving to Patreon. I don't know what kind of things you'd like to see. They're different. Doing some research into that. There's probably some gameplay where I was more talking to you, maybe if I was on the screen where you could say, not that anyone in the world wants to see what I look like having to Betsy. But maybe more of that. Something like that. And at a certain point, right, I'm posting every day and that's the more of the podcast feel. You can see I'm slowly trying to move things over into that realm where the game is kind of going on and I'm talking to you about different things. And so maybe I would publish a schedule. So if there's different topics or if you'd like me to, let me say this, I am confident that I can make topics. What I want to make available to everyone, if there's things that you would like my opinion on or you'd like to know more about, if you followed me in the real world, that's kind of what I do a lot of times. In my role at work, in some cases, I try to, at the companies I've been at, I've tried to promote us as thought leaders, and I will write up, backed up documentation, videos, papers, white papers on those kind of things. So this is kind of a natural thing. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. On Heroic, we probably could have charged him with 2. But, again, this has been a super disciplined club. These guys have been great. And so we're going to kill this last guy. But you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to go get that guy when we're down to 1. So that's what I'm thinking about. I probably don't do good enough. And we can talk about that someday. I might talk about it on a channel, like growing a channel, like what happens in the middle of it. But I'm excited about that division changing because that would change, if I could run different legendaries all the time. That would be great. It would be great to make builds for that. And by make builds that automatically win. Kind of builds. Now, I've been hiding the whole game, so I might be a punk because I'm doing this. But I'm going to go up here. And there's a surprise coming. If you have stayed with us to this point, you're in for a nice treat. And there it is. Cleared. If you're doing this for one of those projects, you got to fire the flare. If you don't fire the flare, you don't get your project. That happened to me once, and I had to redo a floor 100 to fire the flare. So I'm going to go out and fire the flare. I got an exotic. This is my third exotic. You should be doing this on all your characters. You need as many exotics as possible. There's a diamondback. I love those. Sometimes I may try to make a build with it. So as we're going, you know, the leader has said this, and our healer is so great for him. Lady Death drops for him. Instead of hiding it or doing anything, he shares it with the guy. So I want to tell you, you play with our healer TBC_OG. He's the best. Thank you, YouTube. Ronin Kazi out.